today. We have Tom Robbins with us, who is a reporter. Is that your title?
Mm-hmm.
At the New York Daily News, and we're really going to do a job. No, we're going to discuss the paper. Tom, how long have you been? You're not a graduate of the J School at Columbia, right?
No, no.
How long have you been in the news racket?
Oh, I don't know. I figured out it was a way to make a living about 15 years ago. So, before that I did lots of other things, but I've been doing this about 15 years. I've been in the news for 5.
Where have you worked before you worked?
Before the news, I worked at the Village Voice, and I did a short bit with the New York Observer, that pink paper. When it first opened, I was there for a while.
Did you enjoy that?
No, I hated it.
Okay.
Well, it was a mixed bag. I mean, they did let me do some writing, but they didn't know what they were doing then. It's gotten much better since. They got Joe Coniston in there now. He does a terrific job, I think. But my best job before all this stuff was before I sold out and went into commercial journalism. I did a magazine called City Limits, which is a monthly about New York City's neighborhoods, that are people in the trenches and the people who really fight every day to try to fix things up. Sure is, still goes.
You can find it all over?
Well, I don't know.
Do you write for them now?
No, I'm on the board. You know, I just pontificate.
Are you allowed to
criticize what they do?
Are you allowed to write for other periodicals?
No, under the new Zuckerman regime, you have a rule where anything you want to write for anybody else, you got to go to them and get clearance. Now, I haven't asked. I don't know what their opinion is going to be, but I do know this: that back in the days when he was going to take over, we had discussions with him as to what would constitute a conflict. We said, I write about politics and stuff, in terms of like writing for somebody else. And he said, I said, suppose, we're up in the Adirondacks, and I decided I want to write something about a trout stream, which is about as far off my beat as I could possibly be, for some local newspaper or magazine. He said, you have to get permission. So.
From the trout?
You have to get releases from the trout to write for anybody, but then Zuckerman's got.
But of course, that's so easily overcome. There are so many names in the telephone book that one could use.
That's how I got my name, yeah.
And you could also change your style. It could be fun. I've done stuff like that. Well, I can't tell that. I can't tell that story out of school, but it's a good story. I'll tell you later. You worked at The Voice. What is your beat like?
Here's what I was at The Voice. I was a freelancer who wrote for them regularly, which they have a special provision for. It was a very good deal because you get health benefits. If you write often enough, they pay you health benefits, but they don't give you a regular salary. You get paid per piece. I was happy, though. It was a good relationship.
So, did you leave that?
Yeah, I left to go to the news.
You got a job, steady work.
Yeah, well, it was more money, and it was the Daily News. It was 1 million readers, and it was 1 million readers of people who I thought I would like to write for, as opposed to 150,000 people who already agreed or half agreed with anything I was going to write.
So, what do you generally write about?
I do stuff about I do what they call investigations. I do stuff about politics. I do stuff about corruption. I do some stuff about the mob. I do, articles about, kind of muckraking things.
And mostly on city?
Yeah.
Are you limited to sort of
pretty much just the city?
And is that what you did at The Voice?
Pretty much the city.
Were you satisfied with the way The Voice handled your?
No, nobody's ever satisfied.
They would sort of polish up your style, or?
No, actually, The Voice probably could have used a lot more editing.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, yeah, I absolutely believe that. Yeah, I believe that editing is very worthwhile.
Sometimes.
Well, everyone has different. Everyone hates editors, but I think that it serves a good purpose. And I think one of the things that the Village Voice could use now is editors who know what they're doing. They'd realize that.
It's sort of lackluster, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm an old guy, and it seems like it's written by people who are older than me.
Yeah, but it's not. It's like they're going after this very young audience now.
Yeah, but the people. They don't have many new writers, though, do they?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of names in there I've never seen before.
Well, there are some, yeah, but they...
They're going after the yuppies 4 years too late.
That's about it. Yeah,
That's true, yeah,
right.
they're catching up. Well, I was told, or I get the feeling that all the columnists fill up the paper and there's no room for... For instance, when Soho came around, if you look Soho Weekly News, if you look through them, every issue had 30 or 40 writers maybe, and half of them were names that hadn't been there. Well, a lot were new people coming on, and those are the people you see all over journalism today. Whereas people, the voice just seems to be the same old stuff over.
I think papers are like revolutions. You know, they reach a thermidor. You know, they reach a point where they've got a lot. There's a lot of energy and there's a lot of things happening, and you get good people writing for them, and then you get the Voice is a very, very profitable institution. I mean, first and foremost, it's a profitable institution, and basically,
right? That's the key.
Well, that's what it's become. No, and it's it's still got there's still a lot of people in there I enjoy reading.
Yeah, I mean, it still has good stuff.
My friend Wayne Barrett still stood the city on his ear last month with his 12,000 words about the Lockheed Parking Violations Bureau scandal.
He's being sued,
and now he's being sued. Right? No greater honor. That's what I say. Best thing that could happen. But anyway, I mean, there's still some good people in there. But basically, I think they don't seem to have much direction these days.
Oh, well, they make they're still. I think they're moving in the direction of more cigarette ads. Here's a guy, let me say this again, I've said it many times, Mr. Stern, who's up there somewhere between 500 million and $1 billion, and all solid, in solid real estate.
And there's no solid real estate. That's open.
Well, nothing is solid in this world.
It's not bird feed.
Nothing is solid in this world, but at least he didn't go through the October days in '87. And he still has to make his blood money out of tobacco ads. How do you figure that out?
I'm trying to give up smoking, so.
I mean, the guy is his son. He's a philanthropist too.
Who is?
Stern. I mean, his son. Isn't his son very active in
oh, that's right. Yeah,
housing? And I'm sure he gives a lot of money. I think maybe he takes the cigarette money that kills. That's attempting to start young people on.
This is a major issue with you. This is, the cigarette
Yeah,
stuff,
well,
right?
I mean, and its relationship to journalism, that just turns me off. Here's a liberal paper, and anyway. So, so much for the Voice. I don't think they'll survive this polemic too much today, and too much longer.
They don't have any polemics. That's their problem.
So I started reading the news when I was a kid. I guess I remember I read it because it had Moon Mullins and Dick Tracy. And I guess I used to follow sports till baseball till the Dodgers were sold. That's way back. But I don't know if there's still a boycott on, but I enjoy boycotting the news. I think it's become, it used to be terrible, but now it's just awful, I think, in that I did look at it again recently. It seems to have more news, but there isn't very much news in the news.
Well, you give me your critique. Go ahead.
Fire and blood.
Yeah, well.
I mean, that's what it is. Well, the Post is like that, too, of course. And the worst paper in the world that I know of is the Boston Herald. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
That's murder.
You think it's worse than the Post?
Yeah, because the politics are just Neanderthal. Whereas the Post is just...
the Post is, they're itching for a comeback. They make it more run for their money.
And the daily news politics, I guess, used to be even worse than they are now under the McCormick, if that's possible.
Well, the Daily News was founded by the renegade brother, of the Patterson newspaper fortune in Chicago. One brother was a Nazi, and the other brother was a socialist. The brother who was a socialist came east and started the Daily News.
What happened?
And that was the colonel. Well, he got older and he got a little more reactionary in his old age. But that's why we have on the 42nd Street building of the Daily News that beautiful bas-relief with all those people, and there's that caption that says he made so many of them. It's about all that he made so many of the little people. It's supposed to be a quote from Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was Patterson, it was the colonel who founded it, that brought unions to the Daily News. He went to the workers and said, I think you should be represented by a union.
William Randolph Hearst started out as a socialist, too, and so did Benito Mussolini.
Yeah, all right.
And I think Hitler called himself a socialist, too.
All right, well.
And
it didn't all happen in this guy's lifetime, but it is sort of interesting to see that.
So how long did the paper stay that way, do you think?
I don't think it ever was a socialist paper, but it did have this attitude.
Yeah.
And I would
Was
say,
it popular?
I would submit to you that it still does have this attitude to a certain extent.
Well, I mean,
about it's written for working New Yorkers.
That's okay.
What they get confused about is who that is.
No, what it's confused about is what positions working class people should have. I mean, Hitler also pursued the working class.
You're talking about Hitler for? We're talking about a newspaper.
I know. Well, Hitler had newspapers.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone pursues the working class.
Well, this newspaper, I think, had an approach that it was going to be for common folks. They had this saying. They called it "Tell it to Sweeney." Sweeney was supposed to be the everyday working class man. At that time, an Irish man, right? Now it's changed. And Sweeney's, barely exists in New York City, and they've got to figure out a way to tell it to all the other people.
Rodriguez.
Right. That whole.
Tell what is my question. Tell them that 6 people were shot to death in.
Now, where's the school board on that?
How does that help?
That's what I want.
How does that help the working classes? Remember that?
What did you say, Tuli?
Well, actually, there is an article on the school board elections in here.
Oh, sure there is. They gave a lot of coverage to the school boards, more than I would have liked to see, as a matter of fact.
The only paper that had, daily, that had a listing of the positions, which I used when I voted yesterday.
You did?
Of the
That's right.
people who, what their positions were. And
The endorsements.
Christian Coalition and various things. None of the other, the Post had a big editorial endorsing all of the Christian Coalition candidates.
Yeah. Right.
But they did not have a little clip-out thing.
So you could have used that as a guide. I will vote for everybody except these people, right?
Yeah. Well, I read it, and I remember who they were.
Uh-huh.
But no, I went in with The Voice, had one last week, but the only daily was the Daily News that had that.
I rest my case. I rest my case. But better service to the people.
Well, all right, well, the Post is, to coin a phrase, racist. I thought they had more news, though, but...
Anyway, this is an important story.
Why?
This is an important story. They had 6 people slaughtered. I think if you ignore 6 people getting killed in Harlem, and the attitude is like at the New York Times, those people don't count because they didn't get slaughtered in Mogadishu, so we don't care about it. I mean, these people were killed, and then a fire set to cover it. And the guy, as we tell in today's paper, the guy. First he kills 5 of them, and he goes to the Yankee game in the afternoon, and then he comes back and kills another.
But
that's an incredible story, Tuli.
I can get that on tabloid TV. I mean...
Well, you want to watch tabloid TV for?
I can get that... No, I don't watch tabloid TV. And when I can do it in a cheaper or
saying without paying for it, you can turn on your television, which you pay a cable subscription price of $40 a month for. Okay.
$20. But you get a lot else on the. All right. So, what did we learn when we read this story? Is there any discussion of why this happened?
I don't know why it happened.
Isn't this? I mean, what's?
Guy got angry at his.
Do you like the journalism of the? What's the difference between this story and the journalism of what used to be the Inquirer and the News of the World? What's the difference? What do you learn?
Well, this is true for one thing, unlike the Inquirer, the News of the World.
No, the Inquirer only has true stories.
I don't think that's true, Tuli. No, I don't think that's true. Yeah.
No, the Inquirer. No, you think maybe some of the British.
No, I got friends that work for the Inquirer. I know what goes on.
So I mean, when I finish reading this, what do I learn, and what am I supposed to think, and what?
Well, look. Hopefully, if you read the story about what actually happened, it doesn't do any good to pump yesterday's front page because it's not on the stands anymore. Nothing you can do about it. I think it's, for one thing, there's like a photograph in there by a Daily News photographer, which I think was one of the most. That was a pretty strong photograph. That's better than you can get on TV, right?
I don't particularly want to see any more blood and gore.
But that's not blood and gore. That's human suffering.
I've seen human suffering.
Okay.
I mean, you see it every day.
And in addition to the photograph,
do you know that I see you smiling? Do you know that?
I believe it, though.
Do you know that? Have you ever heard that phrase? Newspaper, same thing happens every day, only to different people.
Right.
That's true.
Right.
So why do you want to see this over and over again?
Well, should we not cover it?
Well, are you, why
Should we
don't
not
you
cover it?
Why don't you cover every?
Should we assume that a family of 6 gets butchered, and some guy sets a fire to cover it up, and we should say it's so ordinary, it's so everyday, people have heard it, we're not going to tell them about it again. We'll give it some little story in the back of the paper.
So you want to put that, but there are 1,400 murders in New York. Should you have one every day?
2,000. Well, I hope not to have one every day, but I think when you get 6 people killed in the same family in an apartment, that deserves a front page. It gets my vote anyways. I don't have an argument with that.
Front page out of all those stories.
I think all of the papers in New York, if they disappeared, we wouldn't lose that much. I think the best
Sure we would.
the best news service you get is
Tuli, you're right.
WBA. Would you let me finish?
No.
Is WBAI News.
Is that right?
Yeah. Do you what? Do you listen to that?
You know, I don't listen to it. I don't listen. You know, I certainly listen to BAI a lot in the 60s
I want to know
and the
why
70s.
these people.
When I listen to it now, I don't learn that much from it.
And what people can do about it. Why were these people killed? Do you get any idea?
Jealousy.
You know, I mean, this happens every day. This is it's called cheap sensationalism.
Yeah.
No, but what would you have put on the front page of your paper yesterday?
Yesterday, I would have an analysis of the way the Clinton administration is failing everybody. I think that's the big story. I would have
and a picture.
I would have a deep analysis and an attack on Waco and on the Bosnian situation, which I think I have my solution, which some people call utopian for that, but I think it's a wonderful solution. Abolish one of the NATO armies, preferably the U.S., and give all that money to the people in that region. They're just fighting over territory and wealth. That would stop the war, I think. That's the only way to stop the war. I would have things like that. That's 3. I would have the same way. You know, there's a lot of money around. There's $300 billion in the defense budget. I would have articles about how the defense budget is not.
But that's all. What about local though? I mean, you got to have.
Oh, local. Well, you'd have to have an analysis of the whole city government, of the size of cities. You know all about this, of how the whole thing can and should be restructured, and where the money is going to come from. And it would come. Some of it would come from the federal defense budget and from the. You know, if we're talking about abolishing health insurance.
Well, I think you should have that stuff too.
Abolish the entire insurance industry.
You also need for daily news. I don't know. We should not argue because we agree about so many things. I mean, I believe that most of the stories in the
I didn't say
paper
that story shouldn't be in the paper. I don't think it should be on the front page.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And I don't think it should just be presented as a bloody scene. I noticed now on, what did someone say just, I heard a rebroadcast of a taping of Bob Fass. He said that they always show you the blood now. Well, they show you the blood now on TV. I've been watching it. You see blood on the floor now.
Well, wait a minute. You're complaining about tabloid TV now.
No, the
TV. All right?
Yeah, no.
We're not in color. We can't
but
really
I'm
show
making a
people
point
blood.
now. But they never show you the blood or the bodies of the people in Waco, Texas. They don't show you that because those were the bad guys. I mean, those were the bad guys and killed by the good guys, but they always show you the good guys killed by the bad guys. All right. So, all right, let's move on to that.
The analysis is the violence in society, why this guy felt compelled to do that, you know.
Yeah.
Sexism, male domination.
Exactly. That should be somewhere in there. There should be hints of that, and then there should be feature articles on those on one of those subjects. Yeah, not as a classroom exercise, but you could relate it exactly to what happened there. It's getting hot downtown. All right, let's now that we've solved that problem.
For sure.
Let's talk about, I'm still boycotting the news. Is there an official boycott?
I'm still boycotting the news, too. I don't pay for it.
Yeah,
I get it at work every day.
Very funny.
Well, actually, Tuli, it means I don't buy it on Saturdays and Sundays.
No,
so it does make a difference to me.
Oh, all right.
So
Well, why not? I'm sure.
Don't they
The
position position, or
I believe the guild still has a boycott going. It's not very effective at this point, and I would say that we've probably lost a lot of the initiative there. But basically my feeling is I won't give the guy money for his paper, and I won't encourage other people to until he gives us back a labor contract.
So what has he done to the unions? What is Zuckerman's?
When Zuckerman bought the paper last January, he had deals with every union except the Newspaper Guild, which I'm a member of, and all of the other like white-collar employees at the paper, about I don't know, 500 or 600 of them. I don't know how many there are. I guess more than that. And he essentially broke our union. He fired 180 people on this Thursday night massacre on January 7th, and fired people whose entire careers had been spent working at the Daily News, and told them that they were out because they couldn't cut it. Said this to people who had been the lifeblood of the paper for years.
Yeah,
is this being challenged anywhere, like with the NLRB or anything like that?
Yeah, there's all kinds of court actions that have been filed back and forth. I don't know whether or not any of them are going to lead to a solution. Supposedly, there are kind of desultory contract talks going on off and on every now and again, but doesn't seem to be headed towards a contract anytime soon.
Was there anything like age discrimination? Was like
a lot of
for
people
the
think so.
Older people?
Right, a lot of people think there was.
Al DeVille had been there 19 years.
Yeah, Al DeVille, right? Yeah, you know Al. Yeah, Al's at the AP now.
Yeah, landed on his feet, but not everybody.
Not everybody did. That's exactly right.
Is
a guy like Owen Moritz, who a sweeter guy, never drew breath, who covered urban affairs for the paper for years and years, had his own column for a while. I mean, you can't figure that out. A guy like Vinnie Lee, a big, enormous walrus of a guy who covered the fire department and knew every chief and every battalion and every station house in New York. They fired him. There was a long laundry list of the people that they let go. So
without negotiation, just.
Well, they did have talks with the union. The union, I mean, there's definitely a lot of fault on the union side because they were never able to make a deal.
Was there someone on the inside who fingered?
Yeah, well, supposedly there was a group of managers who sat down and did evaluations of people, and that this is a result of the evaluations. But no one's taken the responsibility for it.
Is he proposing wage cuts for the people that are still there?
No, it had nothing to do with money. I think that's the most evil thing of all. It had nothing to do with money. In fact, he's hired new people now for those old jobs, and he's paying them more than he was paying before.
He wants to get the yuppie crowd.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, the yuppie working.
There's only so many yuppies to get, right?
No, I'm just kidding.
There are fewer and fewer of them.
So have you met the man himself?
Oh, yeah.
Mortimer Zuckerman?
Sure, yeah.
What were your first impressions of him? If you care to...
I thought he was, for a guy who's got as much money as he does, he's certainly, one of the things that's kind of ingratiating about him is that I think Mortimer Zuckerman's a man who wants to be liked. He works, he's very gracious personally to everybody I've seen him encounter. That's what he tries to do. He's not like Maxwell, the other guy.
Yeah.
Maxwell was like this huge, bigger-than-life character. I mean, he really was.
Yeah.
He was like 6'5". He weighed like about 3 stones or whatever that is, and English weight. And he talked to you in this phony stentorian voice, like he was God, and you should wipe his butt for him. And Zuckerman is a shorter man in stature, and sort of wants you to know that he ultimately has the power, but he'd like you to like him for the fact that he has the power.
So what's his vision of the paper?
That's a good question. He says that he wants a great crackerjack populist newspaper.
Whatever that means.
To get a column? I noticed he writes editorials and columns.
Well, I'm sure anybody buys a paper in this market, he could probably make more money doing something else. It's the cachet of being able to own a newspaper, and he's certainly done well by it already.
So how
much is he going to lose this year?
You know what, Lanny, I don't think he's going to lose money, as a matter of fact.
How is the
paper? The Post loses like $24 million a year.
Couldn't happen to a nicer...
So how can the news...
What are the comparative...
We lost a lot of money last year. I think this year, a lot of the advertisers rolled back in after he
What are the comparative circulations of the News and the Post?
News is about double, a little more than double. We're a little under, we're about 750,000 a day.
Has the paper changed since he
Post
took over?
Is about
it's been there about...
400.
the paper, he's been there for how long? 3 months? Or
3 or 4 months, right?
has anything changed as far as you see, as far as the paper goes, the content, the writing?
You know, there's always, it's erratic, you know, it goes day by day. You never can tell.
Changing?
I think that one of the things that he did was he hired editors from the New York Post, and I think to a certain extent we've had more of a focus on sort of sensationalist type Post stories than we used to have.
Post, you mean?
Well, you know, Murdoch had been, yeah, well, the Shift Post is so long dead. I mean, these people sort of learned what, you know, at the helm of...
So it's become more sensational.
Murdoch. Yeah, I see a lot of that. There is a lot more of that than there used
And do you find that the way to go, or non-objectionable? That sounds objectionable to me.
No, I don't like that very much. Okay. I would like to.
So that's...
I just don't think that's a good example.
All right, okay. So what...
Is there a left-right kind of swing to the people he's hired, or?
Well, Zuckerman's added some columnists who I think definitely, it's not right-wing, you know, we're all much cooler than that. These are neo-conservatives, right? You know, no one, you know, Pat Buchanan I could live with, right? Pat Buchanan, you know who he is. He's brought in John Leo, who's a big columnist at the U.S. News and World Report, which Zuckerman also owns.
Yeah.
And Leo has got like one of these sort of, you know, George Will type, you know, sort of jiu-jitsu type, you know, I'm not definitely right-wing.
So, all right.
And he also just hired Jim Sleeper, who's another liberal going to the right, neocon.
Okay, so those are the good things that have happened. Now what? All right, so what? All right, really.
No, I'm going to say a good thing that happened. He hired Michael Daly. Michael Daly. I mean, Michael Daly's like really been a tremendous asset to the paper. He used to be he was a kid who wrote for the paper years ago. He got into some trouble. That's when Breslin was a columnist, and he got into some trouble back then, and I think he's come back and he's like grown up. He's a good writer, and he's doing something different. He's doing something different than the rest of the columnists are doing.
What does he do?
He actually is not trying to, you know, sensationalize or scoop. He's trying to tell people's story. You know, like his column about this incident.
All right. So are you then the extreme left wing of the paper?
Yeah, I'm definitely. I am like that.
Is there anyone else like you?
I'm the Shachtmanite Trotskyist.
Is there anyone else like you on the paper?
Oh, Juan Gonzalez works at the Daily News. He's a columnist. Juan Gonzalez. Remember Juan?
Still there?
Yeah, Juan's there. He's in today's paper. He's got a column about 1199 organizing at Mount Sinai.
Oh, we got 1 more minute.
And how the director of Mount Sinai makes $800,000 a year.
Okay, so what do you want to say now?
That's what you missed today in the Daily News.
What do you want to say now about the future of the paper? And you got 1 minute.
The future of the paper depends on whether or not he can work out good labor relations with the people who are there, I'd say. If you can't come to an accommodation,
am I ever going to want to read this paper?
I think that you were missing Winnie Winkle, which I think you would enjoy if you were reading it. Yeah. You're missing The Far Side, you know, which is one of the greatest cartoons going. Yeah. And you know, I think that
Doonesbury isn't in there.
Yes, it is. Doonesbury is in every day.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll look for Doonesbury.